Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Fistful of Goats here, and today, for the new banlist, I'm bringing back Sky Strikers. I haven't done a video on this deck in a long time, but today we're going to be showing off a Runick build of the deck. Now, one thing I want to say before I start this video, I don't actually have copies of Linkage. It's quite an expensive card, and I didn't really feel like dropping the money on it, but I could buy more expensive cards that play multiple decks. Plus, my meta hasn't got much best deals in it, so I didn't even think I needed Linkage. However, if you want to play more optimally, I would suggest it. So anyway, let's get to the list. For our monsters, 3 Ray, 2 Rose, and 1 Hamp. So Hamp is just there to kaiju the cards that still need kaijuing, because our eyes are still in the format, mostly, but also other big towers like monsters like Dragoon. So then we have our 5 main deck striker monsters to get into the links. Ray is obviously the best because she can recycle herself and quick link during the opponent's turn. The Rose is just another name to get into our link plays. Again, very simple, very basic. We're not playing any hand traps in this deck. We're instead playing a bunch of Runick cards. So let's get into the striker cards first though. Starting things off, we have 2 copies of Engage. I am so glad this is back to 2. Honestly, I don't think it's going to Striker will be fully meta again without new support because the game's a lot faster now. The Bastiles are throwing about some ways. We have a lot of ways now to stop powerful spells. Like, for example, Fairy Samurai can still make Spell Canceller, which shuts the entire deck down. While Trap Dogs can side deck in Anti-Spell Fragrance. So I think 2 of this is fine. I've got a proxy these for now. It's 2 copies of Afterburner. I have them, I just don't know. I just couldn't find them for this event, so I borrowed a couple copies. Afterburner, for those who don't know, it destroys a monster on the field. Then if you've got 3 or more back row in your graveyard, you can then pop a spell or trap card. Now, what I like about this is that the spell trap removal is not targeted, so this is a good way to get around protection. You can also play 1 Jamming Waves if you want to, but with all the Runick monster destruction, I didn't feel needed to. And the best striker spell in the deck is 3 Widow Anchor. When activated, it's an effect veiler, and if you've got 3 spells in the grave, it also steals the monster for the turn. This is really good disruption. At its worst, it can, like I said, be an effect veiler. At its best, it can take a resource of the opponent's board for a turn, or even use it or even you can use it on your turn, take a monster, and then make the link 2 with Ray. So yeah, disruption and removal in 1 card. Definitely, in my opinion, one of the best cards in this deck. And then we have 1 Drones, which I'm guarantee will be at 2 soon. I mean, they're pretty much putting everything else in Striker off the list. I can't see what this will stay on for too much longer. First, know what this does. It makes a token that you can also use to make your Striker links. This is the card that lets Striker be splashed into other decks, and the reason why it hasn't been for a long time. Next, we have 2 Shark Cannons. Now, the reason I'm playing this is because I do have a fairly graveyard heavy meta. There's a couple of tier element decks running around. Branded's still a big thing. There's some zombie decks. There's a Burning Abyss player. And occasionally there's a Heroes player who plays Phoenix Enforcer. So having 2 searchable graveyard disruption cards, I feel is really good in this deck. You could potentially cut one of these for the card that gives them protection. Eco Booster, if you want to. But I think 2 of these in the main. And finally, we're playing 2 copies of Multi-Roll. I'm going to be honest with you, I never felt that 2 was needed. In fact, the one time I did get 2 of them, I just sent one of them off the other one to boost my spell count in the grave. For those who don't know what this does, it lets you pop a spell card to give your spells protection, and then during the end phase, you can set Sky Striker spells equal to the number of Striker spells you played this turn. So yeah, it's good at keeping your advantage going, but it's very easy to search. I generally don't think you need more than 2, definitely not. And I think in the future I might cut this down to 1. And next we have the Runick cards. You know that engine that was hit on the last ban list. So we now have the Act 2 Runick Fountain. Yeah, because most Runick decks are playing 3 of this anyway, said nobody ever. Anyway, basically what this does, for those who don't know, it lets you play the Runick spells and traps from your hand during your opponent's turn. So even though we don't play any actual hand traps in the main deck, we do have basically a bunch of them linked to this card. Also, it lets you banish Runick spells and traps and put them at the bottom of your deck to draw that many cards, so it's sort of like the Striker engine. It lets you keep refilling your resources, just grind your opponent to dust. Honestly, this should have gone to 1. fact that this is still at 2 is insane. 3 tip. Again, another card that why is this card not been hit properly? Tip lets us search any Runick card from our deck, and then make the opponent banish the top card of the deck. Also, it's instant fusion, but we rarely use that in this deck. I only play one of the fusions, so yeah. Next, we have the Flashing Fire, which is the removal of the deck. Again, this is the reason why I only play 2 Afterburner and don't play any Jamming Waves, because this is itself is great removal that also banishes cards on top of the opponent's deck. Then we have 3 Freezing Curse, essentially 3 more effect. Okay, so 3 more effect negators, essentially 3 more anchors in a way. Then we have, this is an interesting one, 3 Slumbers. Now, this is actually, in my opinion, one of the more versatile cards in the deck, because what it does is it lets you take one monster from the field. That monster can be destroyed the next time it would be destroyed, but it can't attack. So, because of this, you can either use this to stun one of your opponent's big monsters, or protect your own. And you also have one of the higher mills at 3. Then we have 3 copies of Destruction. This card destroys back row and mills 4. Now, this doesn't come as often, but there are some continuous spells you might want to destroy, like Branded Lost, for example. In addition to this, this can pop Rival Runick Fountains, it can pop any other busted field spell, and again, the mill 4, if you're in a really grindy game, can definitely come up. Next we have 1 Droplet, 1 Storm. As for the banlist, we have 1 Call by the Grave. I wanted to keep this deck at 40, so I didn't play the Striker spell, because I felt like you'd only get 1 use out of it, because you want Fountain on the field often, but you could play one of the Striker field spell if you want. I first know what these does. This just mills. These are both just basically mill cards. This one milling 4 cards, this one milling equal number of cards, more controls. So these are really here for the grind, for the spells, and to be instant fusions. And that's our main deck. Moving to the extra, we have 3 of every Striker link. And 1 Kagna. Again, I had to borrow that one. And 2 Zeke. So let's go through this. Kagna is how we win in time. It gives 800 points per spell. So it's kind of like an opposite of Cowboy. Zeke is actually amazing at this point, because there are quite a few powerful XCs running around in the meta. So they've got sort of far like this that can remove them is pretty good. Plus with Anchor, this is non-targeting, non-destruction removal, which is really good. And of course, 3 big ones. Kagari to get our spells back from the graveyard. Kayate to dump them there and attack directly to help it to give us a win condition. And Shizuku to get them from our deck. This makes the deck super consistent. It's not difficult in this deck to go through engage multiple times a turn, making your hand massive after you've made your plays, meaning most decks are going to have a very difficult time grinding out with this deck. Finally, we have 1 Boral Sword, because again, no access code. That card to get an affordable reprint. 1 Hugin, because sometimes we need the fountain in the late game to rebuild our hand. And 1 Garua, because in the side deck I do play Super Polymerization. And that was Striker Runick. Unfortunately, my day today was cursed, because I'm not making this up. 4 times today I was hit with a Happy's Feather Dust that just wrecked my field. So I can't say for certain I got a good feel of how Feather Dust plays, but I just want to show you what we're working with so far. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys soon for the next deck scrutiny. See you guys.